So my name is Cadet Lutz, and today we'll be presenting Deliverable 2-3 on behalf of Cadet Henderson and myself. Cadet Henderson had to cut out to class, so he wasn't able to make it for this video presentation, but I'll be taking the lead on it. So here's our title slide as well as our works cited that we actually pasted into the Excel sheet. So we're going to start with the RStudio code that creates the plots that we will then be eventually exporting in the form of PNG. So when we read the data that we created from a CSV file for my data, we then wrote the code from the in-class instructional that then we had to create PNG files for in our directory. So as you can see here, as I ran through that code, we created my Syria map. So my Syria map then populated as a PNG file in our directory. And this works for all four of ours, so including our contour map, which we could see here. Sorry, I have to finish that dev off. And now you have our contour map, and this works additionally for the heat map, which was a pre-save file from before, but same idea. And we could even run through the entire polygon map just to prove that it's working too. So we have our polyplot. So now essentially we have 4 complete PNG plots in our working directory. So the next step that we had to do was then start with our blank Excel. So we have our original dashboard from Deliverable 2-1 and Deliverable 2-2, except just to prove for the sake that's working, we have no graphs whatsoever as well as no filtered data. So in the sake of proving that Deliverable 2-1 was working, we're just going to filter the data based off of the criteria for our class specifically. So Syria between January of 2000 to December of 2014. So what's this going to do essentially is we're just replicating Deliverable 2-2 real quick. So we're going to filter it. It's going to take a little bit of time just due to the sheer amount of data. But we're going to filter off that criteria, and if all goes according to plan, which it will, it's going to populate our 6 graphs from Deliverable 2-2 based off of that specific criteria. And here we go. Now, as well as the filtered data proving from Deliverable 2-1. So this kind of consolidation of our work leading up to this point. So now the final part of Deliverable 2-3 is to show that these 6 graphs, as well as our 4 PNG files, can then get exported onto a PowerPoint presentation. So for that, we have to pull up VBA code. So what Cadet Henderson did, as well as myself, was that we took the original code that Major Staple had sent out that imported a PNG and then creates a PowerPoint out of it. And we just modified it specifically for our criteria. And then what happens is we set this sub to a button, so the function then replicates with this create PowerPoint. So when you click this, it's going to take all the pictures of the PNGs and all the graphs, and it's going to move them over onto a PowerPoint presentation. And for our sake, it's just going to move it over onto this title slide. So to prove that this is working, what we're going to do, see it's blank here, we hit create PowerPoint. It's going to work to take all these and populate them onto here. So we have the target by type, the attack by type, the weapon by type, number of attacks by month, fatalities and casualties, number of fatalities and casualties by month. That makes 6, as well as our 4 PNG files. So we completed the task of Deliverable 2-3 by exporting all the files. We created the PNG files, we created the proper plots, and then we got all the plots and all the graphs from Deliverable 2-2 to make their way over onto a PowerPoint slide, which would ultimately be presented in some fashion. In terms of our future work, sir, I think the way we would kind of clear it up is just due to the sheer difficulty with some of the R code. Some of the difficulties we were having that we didn't specifically know how to fix was that sometimes there would be a blank PNG file that would come up. We had to do some debugging that didn't necessarily clarify like why sometimes it was working. We knew that it was probably the placement of where we put the PNG of, for example, my serial map that created the PNG. Ultimately, they all ended up working, but I'm sure there's some better way to structure this R code that ultimately makes it so that there's no errors whatsoever. I think we hit it here, but I'm sure there's more. You could trim some things to make the code a little more efficient. And that's just like the inner IT 105 coming out. Additionally, sir, I think the dashboard itself is very intuitive. I think it makes sense. But we could probably just kind of make it a little more flashy in the future. Make it something that could be accessible to people. The buttons and the drop downs are fairly intuitive, but as always, you could always seek further improvement. So that concludes the entirety of our brief, sir. The Works cited for our document is here, as well as on the Excel that we will be sending to you via the file directory. Have a good day, sir.